That way we'll have it for the co-op website. So welcome everybody to Herbalism for Beginners. We're on class 3, and today we're going to talk about categories of herbs and just start learning some names and building a dictionary for you that hopefully you're going to be able to use in your future learning. So if you don't have the list that I just sketched out for you, you might want to get some paper. I think it's really helpful to start writing things down as you're learning, and because it helps you remember herb names. It can help you get them into your data banks more easily and quickly, and when you're using a few different kinds of input. And if that's too much for you, then know that it'll be recorded, and we'll be able to have the handout in the chat for you that's got a little bit more detail that you can work with. So I'm going to start by turning this to speaker view, and I'm going to, what's the chat say? Closed caption is turned on. Please turn it on before the meeting starts. That's the only way it will work. Okay. I do not know how to do that after the meeting starts. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Miriam. Very helpful. Good. Very perfect. Now, hopefully it won't give us too many wrong words as I'm talking. So, okay. Now I have to try and share my screen so I can share. I have a very short PowerPoint for us tonight, so it won't take us that long because I want to do a lot more just talking and going over the list that I got for you here. But I just wanted a couple of points. Slideshow. There we go. And I gotta get us out of the way. So, categories of herbs. So right off the bat, we're going to start out with, there's two kind of overarching broad, larger categories, and one of them is called adaptogens. And adaptogenic herbs are more like tonic herbs. They're harmless plants. They don't generally have side effects. They increase your general capacity to adapt to stress. They increase your resistance to disease and your resilience. They're not localized to a specific body organ. They have just a balancing, normalizing effect. These are herbs that you're going to be able to take long term. They're restorative. They work on the whole system. Many foods that are used in traditional cooking are some of these root herbs like astragalus, ashwagandha, and schisandra are two other ones that you may have heard of, and they're pretty mainstream herbs these days. Eleuthero is another one that is really out there in commerce. Stinging nettle is one of our local ones that can grow around here and is easy to forage and easy to let grow in sections of your garden if you're not too nervous to have it around as a close neighbor. And it's a very effective one that is easy to locally source, and it grows in just about every area across the North America. So astragalus in Minnesota and ashwagandha, there's some pockets where it's warmer, and if we have a little microclimate, we're able to get it to grow, and they are roots that are used. Rhodiola is another one that sometimes we can get to grow here, and Schisandra is a vining plant that is really quite interesting. The berries that are used in the remedies have all 5 flavors in them. And if you've ever tasted Schisandra, it's really interesting because it goes like through the flavor spectrum. It goes from like sweet, and then it gets really tart, and it gets kind of bitter, and then it gets sour, and they just kind of blend right along through the whole flavor chain. So you can tell that it's working on a lot of different things at once. And I have a Shishandra vine growing in my garden, and it's on its 7th year. And 2 years ago, I finally got like 6 berries, and it takes up a pretty good, probably about a 12-foot length of fence. So it looks kind of like a big viney, sort of like a grapevine in a way, but not as big of leaves. This last year, I got a whole bunch. So, like a whole clump, not a whole bunch. And so I'm really excited that it's finally taking off and growing. And I was able to make my first fresh Shisanda berry tincture this year to share with my clients and people that I help. So, let's see. So the other bigger category of herbs that's kind of overarching is something called alternatives. And these are herbs that are more specific. They're used to alter a system, a tissue, a condition. They work towards changing something. And they're also used to target organisms like viruses, bacteria, parasites. And there's lots of herbs that fit into this category, but also food as medicine fits into this category quite a bit, because we can use certain foods that alter our digestion, and they're not just something that you'd have to take as a tincture or put in a teacup. Is that something that you can put into your day, sort of like a tonic, but with a more specific focus? So these are some of the categories, not all of them, that fall under alternatives. And we're going to go through these one by one and kind of talk about their different properties. So you can start to, and the herbs, some herbs that fit into each of the categories. This is where taking notes might come in handy. Then we're going to go through these one by one. Let's see. And then, so that's it. Now we're going to go back out of here and get out of there. And we're back. Okay, so there are a lot of people on my screen. So if you have a question or something, just go ahead and unmute yourself and just, raise your hand or something, because it's really hard for me to track all of this. So, let's see. Can't even find
Stacy, there was a question about getting the PDFs. Maybe you can tell them how they got it. Or I know I got mine via email earlier today.
Sure. I sent it to Jennifer, and she was supposed to send it out when people signed up. And it was just an alphabetical list like the one you saw. So the one I'm going to send you, can you see this? It's going to have it all filled in. But again, it's kind of nice to, if you can, write some of these things down. And it's going to stick better. I'm not exactly sure, Pat, why you are pulling up as the speaker view for me.
I just jumped in to let you know.
Oh yeah, it's not popping me back up though. And just want to make sure. There I am. I don't know. Gotta look at myself so I know that I'm not making weird faces. Okay, so are there any questions about the adaptogenic herbs for starters? One thing to know about them is that they have different, like a bell curve of if they're more calming or more stimulating or more neutral. And so as you're thinking about you're going to take it for yourself or you're going to take it for or give it, share it with someone else, that what is it that this person needs? Do they need an adaptogen that's going to help them deal with stress in a way that's going to help calm them down? Or do they need an adaptogen that's going to help them feel more vital and feel more energized? That would be more like the rhodiola or the schisandra, whereas ashwagandha is a much more calming and de-stressing kind of feel to it. And astragalus is in the middle. It's a very neutral, and it's used a lot in pot herbs, in different kinds of soups and things like that. Every time that I make any kind of a stew or a sauce or something that's going to cook for a long time, got a lot of liquid to it, I will always throw an astragalus root into my dish because that's just another way that you can get it in to your body without taking it as a tincture or a supplement or more tea and that sort of thing. Just another way to do it. Stinging nettle is a little bit more neutral to stimulating. It's also a little bit more drying to a body. So depending on if a person um, needs to be a little bit more astringent or dried out versus if they're already too dry, you want to look at all those kinds of constitutional things when you're choosing your herbs. So same goes for the alternatives, which we're going to talk about next. And I'm just going to start running down this alphabetical list. So,
Stacy, I just have one question with the adaptogens. Where do you get them except, I mean, you grow your own, like, can you get them at Whole Foods or?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh.
And I can't grow them all either. I can't
Oh.
grow ashwagandha. I can't grow astragalus. But some people over in Wisconsin, not too far from here, are growing astragalus. And so some of the local growers and greenhouses around are being able to do some of this more not normally in our zone kinds of herbs. So you can check, the local growers. They have this dried herbs and tincture form in the co-op, at Essence of Health, at Betty Lou's, in our Duluth area. So local, wherever you live, look to your health food store, and they usually will have someone there that can help you sort out which one might be better for you, or get in touch with the herbal community in your town. That most areas have some sort of herb guild or herb group or something like that where you can find a practitioner or a resource. So look to those things. Just type in, herbal groups in my area, master gardeners. That's a good idea, Sandy. Lots of options, and order online, but you just want to make sure you're getting a good quality company. Look where the herbs are being sourced from. Look, a lot of the herb companies that are smaller are growing their own herbs, so they are using more sustainable and more. You can find out what they're doing as terms of if they're using any kinds of chemicals or stuff like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that goes for pretty much all herbs all the time, not just the adaptogens. So I like Pacific Botanicals. I get some things from Star West Botanicals. I use Frontier from time to time, depending on what I need and how much of an herb I need. I use Black Locust Farms. They're out of Michigan. Um, where else? Oh, well, Mountain Rose Herbs. They've been around forever. They have really good resources too. Um, they have good educational things. And then learning herbs. What is there? Learningherbs.org. I can't think of the actual name of their shop, but that's another good educational site as well. So let's start talking about alternatives. And what I want you to try and think about when we're talking through this list is that herbs can go in more than one category, and many of them do crossover. And what we're looking for when you're thinking about what am I going to use for this, that, or the other thing is what is the tissue state? What is the situation? What is the constitution? Like start pulling in the things that we talked about last month a little bit. What's going on and what needs balancing out? And that's how you start looking at, do I need just one herb to do this? Do I need to pair it with something to tone it down a little or amp it up a little or make it more balanced as I'm putting it in or on my body? So things like that. So aromatics are herbs that are high in volatile oils for the most part. They are the ones that essential oils are distilled from, things like mints, citrus, rose, any of those herbs that you can think of that, you open the spice jar and the smell just comes out at you. There's a lot of antimicrobial and stimulating or tissue affecting oils in there that you're going to have the ability to soothe something or stimulate. So if you think about peppermint, that's got properties that can stimulate circulation, but on the other hand, it also can soothe the stomach. So it's got some properties for soothing and calming, and it's also can be activating. So is peppermint something that you would use for a stomach, or would that be too much for your stomach? Maybe spearmint would be better. It's a little calmer, it's a little more gentle, it's not quite as hot. So thinking along those lines. Antiseptics have antimicrobial properties. So just like you would think about antiseptics that you would put on from the drugstore, similar sensations, like they have a little bit of a numbing effect. They mitigate infection. They have the ability to manage bacterias, viruses, that sort of thing. Most of the time they're used topically, but not always. You can think of using antiseptics maybe in your mouth for a mouth rinse, or if you have an infection in your stomach. A lot of times we want to put in things that are antiseptic when we're dealing with ulcers or wounds on the inside of our bodies. So things that come to mind with that are echinacea, which is Echinacea purpurea or Echinacea angustifolia. We have golden seal, which is Hydrastis canadensis. And we have yarrow. Yarrow is probably in almost every single one of these categories that we're going to list in one way or another. Achillea millefolium. Spilanthes is another antiseptic that's topical. It's called Acmella oleracea, and it's an annual where we live. It comes from I think Africa, somewhere where it's real warm, and its nickname is the toothache plant. So it's antiseptic. It's got a lot of bacterial and wound healing properties, but it's also very, very numbing. So it works really well for things like teething babies or really sore um, wounds on the skin, like scrapes and bruises and cuts and things like that, because it can help keep them clean and it can also help with the pain and help the healing. Astringents oftentimes have antiseptic qualities and they're tissue tonifiers. They help to tighten things. They dry stuff up. They decrease inflammation. And they can also have that numbing effect. I think I said that. So think about astringents that you might know already. There's witch hazel that people will use as a skin toner to tighten up the pores on their face. If you think that in that term of something like that, that's going to tighten up your pores, that's astringent. If you think about drinking green tea and feel that dry, sort of dried out tightness that gets in your mucous membranes of your mouth, that's astringent. So if you have a pussy infected cut on your arm, you could use an astringent to try and help get rid of some of that um, wetness and help that tissue then to get toned up enough so it could start to heal and not become a place where bacteria could flourish. So other astringents that we know and love that are good garden plants and grow in your yard are plantain, Plantago major. Lady's mantle is Alchemilla vulgaris. Raspberry leaf, from wild raspberries, from cultivated raspberries. Raspberry leaf is mildly astringent, and it also is a wonderful tonic herb for nutrition and for lots of other things. Blackberry leaf is twice as astringent as raspberry leaf. So you would want to use blackberry leaf. Say someone's having trouble with their digestion, maybe having diarrhea from a virus or the flu, and it's getting to be a problem where they're starting to get dehydrated. If you put an astringent on board, it will help to tighten up that GI tract, that lower GI, and stop that diarrhea from, being such a problem. And if it's something you really want to kind of nip in the bud, that's blackberry leaf is the one to use um, over raspberry leaf. Blackberry leaf is probably too strong most of the time for little kids, and strawberry leaf is a nice one for littles. It's like the least astringent, but it's just got a little bit of property in that direction that can help tone up tiny bowels. So oak bark is another astringent. It's got a lot of tannins in it. That's a lot, oftentimes what makes some of the foods we eat, the wine we drink and things like that, that dry our mouths out, are full of tannins. And that is what oak bark has. People use oak bark sticks and twigs to keep their teeth clean. You can chew on an oak stick and use it as a tooth stick, and it helps to keep your gums toned up and keeps you from getting gum disease. Bitters are next on our list here, and most of the time you want to think bitters as food as medicine as much as you want, as much as you can, and really try and get them into your diet and embrace them and try and enjoy them. A lot of people don't like the taste of bitter too much, but it's super important for our digestion, for helping stimulate our digestive enzymes, for helping our gallbladder and our liver process things and break down foods and keep our digestive healthy. So if you've ever noticed in the last probably few years, digestive bitters have been kind of a buzzword out in natural herbal world and natural healing. And there's lots of different bitters out there, and they really can be tasty. They don't have to taste so bad that you can hardly swallow them. You can make bitters with some very nice dark bitter undertones, but then have some fruity overtones on top of them that make them really pretty easy to take and palatable. And if you use them 20 minutes before you eat, it can be a game changer for people with digestive problems. Some bitters that I like to use regularly are yellow dock, which is called Rumix crispus, and that grows locally around here. It grows a lot of places. You can find it easily. Dig it up and use the root most of the time, but you can eat the leaves as well in the spring. We have burdock, which is a cousin. It's called Arcticum lappa, and that one is more gentle. It's not quite as strong tasting, and it's also not quite as activating. So it's more of a tonic alternative in a way. Um, Herbs that have yellow sap in them are called berberines, and berberines are bitter, and berberines um, really play a key role in the digestive process. And if you think about the doctrine of signatures and the bile and the yellowness of the bile, and then the yellowness of the juice of those plants, it's one of the signs that those could be helpful for us. And you may have heard of herbs like bilberry and barberry. Those are often commonly used as digestive herbs. Bitter orange, and even citrus peels. If you take citrus peels and dry them out, and you can put them into your tea, and it gives them a little bit of a bitter edge, and it can help your digestion. So on the other end of stimulating digestion is sometimes we have to kind of calm it down, and those fall into the category of carminatives. Carminatives soothe the digestive process. They work to help pop the gas bubbles and calm down, like relax the tissues so that if you're having cramping, if you're having like stagnation that's getting stuck, like that gas and bloating, it's going to help to cut through that and move things along. And so lots of our spices that we have right in the kitchen are perfect carminatives, and they work really quickly. So things like ginger is more warming, and a lot of people will use ginger to help their digestion. If ginger's not something that you really enjoy or it's too hot for you, you can think about using bay leaf. Bay leaf is really um, soothing and calming, and it's just warming and nice. Kids can drink it. It tastes lovely. It's a little tiny bit spicy along the lines of like cinnamon, but not quite that flavorful. Very nice and mild. It works really well. I use that with a lot of my clients. Fennel seeds, that's another one that is a really quick fix. You just get the fennel seeds out and you put them in your mouth and you chew them up. And they have that sort of black licoricey taste. And um, if that's a flavor that you like, it can be really helpful. And you just swallow the juice and kind of spit the seed um, shells out as you chew them if you don't like them. Otherwise, you can chew them up enough where you can swallow them down. And it works, it's very effective, works really quickly. There ones you may find in your kitchen that you have are things like, again, the mints, the peppermints, the spearmints. Dill is a carminative, and it's more cooling. So if you're the kind of person that has that hot stomach that's causing that inflammation, that indigestion, you might want to try some of the more cooling ones like the dill or cilantro or the fennel. I'm just going to go back over to the chat here for a second because I think I'm missing a bunch of stuff here. Important to the question is withholding the adaptogens for certain periods of time so natural immunity is not weakened. And it's good to maybe switch them up. You don't necessarily have to take big breaks from them. And they are very much tonic. They're very not designed for, but they're very amenable to be taken for very long periods of time and just used as part of your daily intake. So it's not the same as how people say, like if you're going to take an antiviral and you want to take it for a little while and then take a break from it, it's not the same kind of process for the adaptogens. And we are going to get to how to use them, and that's coming up like next week. So, or next month, I mean, sorry. And I'm glad that you know what the plants are. Who is this talking to me? Joanne. How to find them. That's great, because we're going to be, talking more about where to find them and how to use them and do some actual making things. So just stay tuned. We're just kind of laying the groundwork right now with the different types of herbs and what we do, what they're used for. The words are important to remember and learn. So I think that's all of the questions. Skin fungus. That's a direct question. Let's try and get back to that one. Let's see, Monica, let's see. How-to books. There are so many how-to books about making things. And one of the best ones is the Herbal Medicine Maker's Handbook by someone's pulling a book out right now. What do we got here? Can't really see it. Can you unmute and read the title?
It is called the Boreal Herbal Wild Food and Medicine Plants of the North, a guide to harvesting, preserving, and prepping. And there's a bunch of like tincture recipes. I saw like a pine bark oat, pine bark cracker recipe. There's a bunch of different tincture recipes and like bath soaps and stuff in there. That
Nice.
really.
And tell them your name.
Oh, also my name is Marlo. And
Hi, Marlo. Thanks for
This is
coming.
Marlo. Hi,
And-
I'm Martha.
Okay. You want to type the title of that book into the chat for everybody, please?
Sure.
And
And the
then
author?
on my website, I have a book list of just not all, but some of our favorite authors and things. And I probably should update it because, we're always getting new books. But there's tons and tons of how-to books out there.
And what's your website name?
Stacy, let's see, what is it? Energy for Life Connection. So it's .com. So and that's actually my did that go to everybody? Nope, it just went to Monica. Let me try that again. It's actually my email too, Stacy at. So and I try regularly to get on there and answer questions and things. So if you have questions, definitely email me. Any other questions right now? What are we doing on time here? Oh, we got some good time. Formulations look more expensive than whole herb formulations. guess it depends on what you're trying to treat for the different formulations. You know, sometimes simples are the best thing. You know, less is more, especially if you've not taken something before. You want to know which herb is doing what in your body. So oftentimes, if I'm starting out with somebody and I want them to use a formula, especially if it's a dried herb thing, I'll put all the herbs in separate little bags for them and say, start with this one, see how it feels. Then put this one in on day 2 or 3 once you know that that one's, you know, good for you, and so on. You know, if we're concerned at all if the person has sensitivities or reacts to things, you want to take it slow. If there's formulas out there that you know are herbs that you've used before singularly for different things, then you know that's different. So I hope that answered the question. Let's see. Let's keep moving here so we don't run out of time. So we're going to talk about demulcents. So demulcents are mucilaginous. They are moistening. They heal tissues. They are wound healers most of the time. They're soothing. They are goopy. These are our slamification plants, the ones that get goopy. They're usually cooling and just help with fluid balancing by helping to moisten up and protect and coat dried raw tissue states. So things like chia seed and flaxseed can be used internally and topically to soothe stomach issues. You can use a chia seed goop on a burn in a pinch. That works really well. Violets, Johnny jump ups, any kind of violets, viola. There's all kinds of species of them, and they all have mucilaginous properties. They all are really soothing. If you pull some leaves or a flower top off of violets and you put it in your mouth and you chew it up, you can just feel that slipperiness, sweetness as you're chewing that up, and you'll feel it just kind of coat your throat. Very lovely. But I use viola in my one of the remedies teas that I use for sore throats. It's very soothing. Marshmallow root, Althea officinalis. Plantago major again. Plantain is in astringents, but it's also in mucilages. So, you know, they have dual purposes sometimes. The mucilage is slight. The astringent properties are probably, you know, they balance each other well. So sometimes it can feel like a little bit of a, like that you're saying two things that are opposite, but they really all do work together that way. That's why whole plant formulations or whole plant remedies are sometimes so much different than when they're trying to isolate constituents out and make something like aspirin, for instance. You know, instead of taking the whole meadowsweet flowering top and using that as the anti-inflammatory herb, the circulatory stimulating herb, the ulcer healing herb, that it's designed to be, the extracted salicins turn into something that actually gives people stomach problems. It's the other properties in that whole plant that balance it out and make it useful in a way that just a little teeny piece of it doesn't. So, a couple other really good demulcents. Slippery elm is Umus rubra. And chickweed, that's another one that usually grows pretty easily around shady foundations and in shady parts of in the yard and around edges. And that is a nice, wonderful topical. It's also really tasty and moistening and succulent for putting into like your salads and things like that and helping you on the inside. Most people know about aloe vera. So if you can think about how that aloe vera is juicy and goopy on the inside when you pull that leaf off to help you with a burn, that's the kind of properties that these demulcents have. And when we use demulcents on the inside, so demulcents are used on the inside. And when we use these kinds of mucilages on the outside, they're called emollients. So it's just a different word that means the same thing. It's just the location. So diaphoretics are herbs that help relax tissue in stimulate circulation to help us open stuckness. So diaphoretics help with opening the lungs and to help with the release of heat and tension in tissues that keep things like a fever stuck in the body. They're relaxing and opening and diffusive. And they just can help bump that stuck fever. It helps to facilitate the circulation and the sweating. So a lot of times people kind of want to try and keep their fever from getting too out of control or too hot, but sometimes they don't let their fever work itself through enough to help clear the bacteria or the virus that your body is fighting, and it's sometimes it's good to help that process. We don't want that fever to get stuck though. That's where we run into trouble, and the diaphoretics are what help keep the skin open so that the sweating can happen. So boneset, Eupatorium perfoliatum, is a real popular and very it's like one of the leaders in this area. Boneset's used for what we call bone break fever. When you have that flu so bad that it feels like you just got run over by a truck, and you have the body aches and you've got the chills and the fever, boneset can really, really help to facilitate that process and get it moving through quicker. Elderflower is used in the same way. Elderflower is very, very gentle. Elderflower can be used with children and fragile elders and by everybody. It's just a really staple to have in your herb closet, and you can use it so many ways to get it into children. It's got a very mild taste. And it's super, super effective. Yarrow again. Yarrow helps to stimulate the circulation and to get things moving. So we'll often take some yarrow tea or maybe some ginger, which does kind of the same things. It stimulates the flow to the peripheral circulatory system. And so it brings that heat out of the body to the edges. Catnip's another one that's really, really gentle. It's a member of the mint family, and it's a nice one for kids. So catnip is also a carminative. So it is another one that you can use for stomach upset and calming down. And catnip actually fits into our category of nervines, which we'll talk about a little bit later down the list here. So from diaphoretics, we move into diuretics. And diaphoretics, when we're using teas that are warming, a lot of the herbs that fall into the diaphoretic category are used as a warming herb. But when they get cooled off, so you've got warm yarrow tea and it's cooled off, and you drink it that way, it actually can be more of a diuretic. It goes to a different part of the system and it affects your fluids in a different way. So diuretics help to stimulate the urine production and elimination. So there's 3 different ways that this happens. One of them is that the herbs that are going to stimulate the blood flow to the kidneys and the bladder are like irritating. So it makes your body want to flush out, get rid of that irritation. And herbs that have a lot of volatile oils and some like volatile oils and things that are activating and stimulating are going to produce that irritation and help your body flush things. So things again like celery juice, parsley, Monarda fistulosa is called bee balm. That one is a specific for the bladder and the kidneys, and it's got a lot of. It's a very fragrant plant. It's kind of oily. It does it like oregano, and it's got that sort of spicy flavor to it when you put it in your mouth. So again, back to the mint plants, thyme, oregano. All of those things are going to help with stimulating and irritating and getting those foods to move. Juniper berry is another good one, and that's one of the reasons that cranberry juice works when someone's having a bladder infection is because it's doing that irritating thing and causing your body to flush. So the other way that diuretics work is they work on the whole system and they work on cardiac output. So if someone's got congestive heart failure or edema in their legs from COPD and lack of movement for other reasons, using herbs that can help the heart and the cardiac flow, paired with something like a lymphatic herb, which helps the waters of our body move, are going to help get that water out and out through the system. And they're also going to work in the kidneys in a way that keeps the kidneys from reabsorbing so much water. So hawthorn berry is one, crataegus, that is really useful in this area. Let's see, just checking the chat. The other, let's see, did I hit those 3 things? Cardiac flow, irritating, and decreasing the amount of water that the kidneys are reabsorbing. There's a lot to this. There's a lot of detail and there's a lot of learning about how to support really specific kidney function, especially for people that have trouble. And we're not, just going to go into depth with that tonight. So, but good start. So, then we go to emmenagogues. So emmenagogues stimulate and regulate the menstrual flow and function. So it's a remedy that normalizes and tones the female reproductive system. And once again, one of my favorites, yarrow, is in this category too. Matthew Wood calls yarrow the master of the blood. It helps us with blood flow and regulating. If it's bleeding too much, it can kind of staunch it. If it's not bleeding enough, it can give it a nudge. And in the area of emmenagogues, it's a really not very huge side effects, safe to use and try and experiment with, and can help you with regulating that. Especially seems that if you're supposed to get your period and it's like late and it's like, oh, it's going to come any day now, and you're just like ready for it, you're just ready to have it start, drinking a cup of yarrow tea can often be the thing that will help to just nudge it over and get it to kick in. The name for the cardiac herb flow, hawthorn berry is a very nice herb tonic or heart tonic. It does have a little bit of caution around it. If you have a really low blood pressure, you have to be a little bit careful because it is relaxing in a way, and it can do a little bit of blood pressure lowering, but it's very high in antioxidants, and it actually just doesn't change. It just helps the heart beat better, stronger. It helps the arterial flow. It helps the tissues with strengthening and contracting more fully. It's just a really nice tonic. You can use the leaves too, which are more diffusive. So we talked about emollients, and those we know that those are just the emulsient herbs used on top. So thinking about wound healing and that sort of thing. Hawthorn can be used with kids. I think with anything with kids, you got to take a look at what is it that you're trying to affect, and why would you use this? It's gentle, though. I mean, they make lovely hawthorn blend teas, and the berries aren't great to eat by themselves. They're kind of woody and tough, but you definitely could be using hawthorn with children. Expectorants. So expectorants help the body get rid of mucus in the lungs. So if you think about the cough syrups that you buy that say that they're an expectorant, that's of course what you're getting them for is to try and calm down that gunky cough. So we're looking at things that are going to thin out those secretions so you can get them out, reabsorb them, push them through your lymphatic system. You're looking for something that's going to help to calm down the spasm. And you're looking for something that is going to, most of the time when there's mucus, there's bacteria. We want to make sure that we're keeping that bacterial load down so that they don't get ahead of the job that they're supposed to do with their cleaning, and keep everything balanced. So some ones that are common and grow around here are basswood leaves and flowers, which are also very, very easy to get in commerce at the different places that we talked about earlier.
Sorry, can you repeat that name?
Basswood
Basswood,
leaves.
oh.
So Tilia cordata is one brand that you'll see, or species that you'll see most of the time in commerce. Basswood is widely used in Europe. In France, it's one of their standard, like, everybody has this in their kitchen, and if you go there, they'll give this to you just like we give people a cup of coffee, and that's it's calming to the nervous system, and it's not like, make you go to sleep. It's just a really nice soothing tea. It's mildly astringent. It has a lot of antiseptic properties. So again, it's going to help all those things with that lung mucus going on. Elderberry, another one that will help to mitigate that mucousy lung condition. Horehound is another one. Marubium bulgari. And it is really a good antispasmodic. Horehound is bitter, and most of the time, if you're going to try and get it into a little person or someone that is taste sensitive, you might need to put something like honey in it, but it's very effective to calm that spazzy, goopy cough. Thyme is a great one. Peppermint, sage. Sage is soothing, calming, drying. It's a very useful one. So thinking again, what can I do to relax these tissues enough, but also support the thinning of the secretions? There's a herb called hyssop, Hyssopus officinalis. And it's different than the herb that is called anise hyssop. That is more of a, it looks like a more of a mint. Hyssop officinalis is a little woody, kind of scrubby bush, and it's got a very skunky smell to it, and it's very effective for diffusing the lungs. Galactagogues are herbs that increase the flow of breast milk when someone is lactating. So, depending on the mama's needs, there's a couple that work really well. Milk thistle seed is one of them, easy to find at the grocery store as well. Stinging nettles is another. So stinging nettles is an adaptogen. So it's a tonic herb, which helps all the systems, and it helps that lactating mama, and it gives her nutrition, and it helps her with her hormones and with her digestion and all kinds of things. And it's good for the babies too. Helps the immune system stay strong for both of them. I talked a little bit earlier about lymphatics and helping to move fluids, and our lymphatic system is basically the water system of our body, the sewer system that helps to clear debris, stagnation, infection, inflammation, and there's so many good lymphatics, and it's really important to keep this part of your system working properly and keep it moving, because your lymphatic system is a dependent system. It doesn't have a pump that's circulating it all the time. It's dependent on your movement and your muscle contraction and gravity. So you need to be moving your body, getting your arms up in the air, moving things around, doing things like dry brushing, and keeping that system healthy, because it's going to keep you well. And some of the lymphatics that can help us with that are cleavers, which is called Gallium apiarine. We have calendula, super easy to grow in your garden or in a pot, Calendula officinalis. Cleavers is a more cooling lymphatic. Calendula is a more warming lymphatic. So depending on, again, what you need, you're gonna pick that depending on the symptoms that are presenting in your body. Violets, again, violets not only are mucilaginous, but they are lymphatic. Violets are used in a lot of breast cancer formulas because they help with that lymphatic tissue of our breasts. Red root is something that is called Ceanothus americanus, and it grows out on the East Coast is when I first learned about it. I've tried to get it started in my yard a few times here, and it hasn't ever taken, but I don't know if that's just because of my own yard, because it seems like it would grow in this zone. So I really like red root. It's a very deep lymphatic. It goes into the deeper tissues and helps to clear things that have been stuck a little longer, and are a little deeper in the system that need to get more worked out. And that's similar to one we have called wild blue indigo, baptisia. And that one is also for deeper, more stuck, been there longer, lymphatic issues that need to be cleared. So we're moving into nervines now, and nervines are basically, they affect our nervous system. And there's so many. I mean, in every one of these categories, I'm giving you maybe the top 5 I could think of off the top of my head when I was making this list. There's so many herbs in all of these categories. It just takes time to learn them and find the ones that work for you and that resonate with you. In the nervine category, you could start with something as very simple as chamomile. Chamomile is gentle, but it's powerful. Kids can have it, babies can have it. It's got so many great qualities for calming, helping sleep. It's also a digestive herb. It can help you calm down your stomach. It's a carminative. It's so again, it fits a few categories. If you're stressing out and you're not sleeping and you have an upset stomach, chamomile might be a great one for you to try. St. John's wort, a popular herb that most people have heard of, hypericum. People feel like they use it a lot emotionally for anxiety, is how we learn about it in commerce, but really it's a very effective topical, and it was really used more as a topical in our history of herbalism. It's great for puncture wounds. It's great for any area that's got a profusion of nervous tissue or nervous sensory sensory nerves. So fingertips, toes, places that get cut like that. It's great for puncture wounds. It's a blood purifier. It's a blood cleaner. And that's one of the reasons that it works internally for us too, because it helps your liver get rid of excess chemicals and hormones and toxins in your blood. And that's one of the reasons that it helps you with the nervous system problems that people have. St. John's wort is one that does have caution around it because it is so good at its job. It will actually clear your blood faster than maybe you want it to. If you're taking certain medicines, you want them to stay in your body longer. And it does impact the neurochemicals that create our balance in mood and things like that. So if you're taking those kinds of medications, St. John's wort often has cautions around it. But there are other ones that you can take, even if you are on pharmaceutical nervous system medicines like skullcap, Scutellaria laterifolia. Passion flower is another one. You can find these in teas in the grocery store. We've got hops. Hops was used as a nervous system herb long before it was ever put into beer as a preservative. And that's one of the reasons that beer is calming and somewhat depressive, is because of the hops that are in there. And that's one of the properties of that wonderful herb. It's used for helping sleep. It's, again, hops is also a digestive herb because it's very bitter. And it's used for lots of other reasons. Hops is one that your body can get a tolerance to, and that you have to take more of it to get the same effect. And so that's not one that we have people take for very long. And it's one that I don't use right away at first with anybody most of the time. We have milky oats. Milky oats is Avena sativa. Wonderful dental. This is a tonic nervine. This one works with our endocrine system. It helps our adrenals calm down and balance out, which calms down our whole system. It's got tons of nutrition. It's got tons of minerals. It makes a lovely tea, and it's good. Anybody can have it. Kids. It's a really nice one. Prickly ash is one that I use topically a lot for neuropathy. I learned about that from Matthew Wood some years ago, and it's really, really effective. I have used it in combination with hawthorn internally and topically for people that have circulatory impacted neuropathies like diabetes or other problems, and it really can minimize the symptoms and help reverse things. So that's a good one to learn about. We are really getting towards the end of our time here. We're almost done with the list. I just really quickly, we have purgatives left, which purgatives and anemics. So getting the toxins or the poison or the constipation or whatever it is out of the body, the food poisoning, either by flushing it extremely out the bottom or out the top. And these are herbs that you have to be really careful with. You really want to, they can be toxic themselves. They can be really strong and really not pleasant to use. And, you know, so you should be using them in acute situations or emergencies and with caution. If you need something that is going to make you empty your bowels quickly, sometimes just taking super high doses of vitamin C will do the trick, where you don't have to use a really strong acting herb that has, you know, side effects of its own. So if you know those little packets of emergency that you can get for, you put the powder and it gets fizzy and you drink it, a couple of those will usually flush out a body if you need to in a hurry. Lobelia inflata is one that is very, very strong and will almost always make someone throw up if they need to with not a very strong dose. But again, hard on the body and has some cautions around it. Cashkira sagrada is more of a it's a bark, and it has a eliminatory effect, so it'll make you empty your bowels. And buckthorn, one of our invasive species around here, the common buckthorn, they use the bark to also make like a really potent, like this is going to work quickly, laxative, and also potentially emetic. So again, that's kind of a category where emergency only and with great care. Then we have vulnerinaries. So those are wound healers. Back to the demulcents, back to the astringents, back to plantain and calendula and yarrow, comfrey, prunella, that's self-heal or heal-all, that grows in fields around in dry kind of open fields. That's another great wound healer. Chickweed again, honey. So many of the herbs that we talked about in the other categories are wound healers, depending on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to soothe, you're going to use an emollient, or a demulcent. If you're going to try and dry up some pus, you're going to want to use something that's more astringent, and like plantain does both. You might want to put something that's antiseptic in there to help with the infection. Yarrow does that. Spilanthes does that. Both of those also have analgesic properties. And so you can see how, you know, you get a handful of herbs that you know well that cover a lot of these bases. You don't need 500 herbs in your herb closet. You need 15 that you get to know well and know how to pair them and blend them and use them. And that's what we're going to keep talking about through these classes, and we're going to keep going. So I am going to try to share the handout again here, and hopefully you can get it. And if you don't get it, if you can't open it, then email me. There it is. Let's see if anybody can open it.
I can open it. Thank you.
Great. Great. Okay. Any final questions or comments, or feedback for me before we get
I'm on
done?
I'm on my iPad and I don't seem to see where you posted it. Is it
I
an
post-
attached?
It's in the chat.
Oh, I
It's a
don't see.
little file link in the chat.
Maybe it doesn't come through on an iPad.
I don't see it on an iPhone either. Can that be emailed out?
Yeah, as long as you email me, then I can email it right to you.
You.
No problem. Now I know I saw the subtext as we were talking a little bit, and I know there was like tons of miswords in there, and I don't know if I have the ability to try and edit it or not once the recording's over. So please take that with a grain of salt as you're trying to look up herbs and things.
Thank you so
Casey,
much.
what is your email?
It's that energyforlifeconnection.com, but it's just Stacy at. I'll just type it here one more time.
Thank you.
There you go. Yeah, thank you all for being here and being patient with me and my technology wizardry.
Hey Stacy, I missed the first 2 classes. Is there any way I could get the recordings for those?
They're on the co-op YouTube channel. If you email Jennifer, she can probably send you the direct link to that. I'm not exactly sure how to just look it up on YouTube, what it's under.
Okay.
Because I just went on it from the link that she sent.
Sounds good. Perfect. Yeah, I already emailed her. She just hadn't got back to me and I figured it might be easier to ask you first, but all right. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so thank you all, and I'm just so glad that I hope you're finding this helpful and learning a little bit, adding to your list of things that we can grow on.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.